Yo, what up, a-holes? Welcome back to another episode of the Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel. Today we're talking about an article that recently came out on NBCnews.com. Want to bring it up and show you what I'm talking about here. 5 seemingly unhealthy foods that are actually good for you. So she goes off on potatoes, bananas, cereal, and soy, and wheat because you've heard they're unhealthy. Think again. If you've been avoiding these foods, think again. Written by this lady right here, Samantha Cassidy, registered dietitian. Why do I care about this article? Well, first of all, she goes through a couple different food groups that I want to look at. Mostly wheat, soy, and breakfast cereal, okay? And before I even get into any of the video, let me just state that it's written by this girl, Samantha Cassidy, registered dietitian. I don't know this lady. I don't know what her, I don't know what else she's written. I don't know what else she's contributed. But here's what I've learned in the time that I've been studying nutrition. Anytime a registered dietitian has an opinion and her only certificate is a registered dietitian, always be skeptical. Because the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is not the most credible source to get nutrition information, okay? Yes, they are the first people we think of when we think about nutrition in this country. And is it any surprise that the health in this country is so abysmal, right? We can look at the numbers of how bad nutrition and health is in this country, right? Heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disease, diabetes, mental health, all these problems, right? And what has been the staple since the early 1900s? The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And they're the ones who lead the charge on the heart health hypothesis. You know, that cholesterol is bad for you, that fat is bad for you, eat a low-fat diet. And now they're really leaning towards this more kind of vegetarian, plant-based diet, right? And I don't want to get into a pissing match here about plant-based and keto. It has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the fact that when you actually start digging in to the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, you start seeing a lot of shenanigans. You start seeing a lot of partnerships. And, recently it hasn't been as bad, but in the past, and we're talking within like the last couple years, I mean, they have received support, financial support from people like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, big food companies, I believe like General Mills. Right now they are supported by a company called Abbott, who makes a lot of just processed food, a lot of, stuff in boxes. They make a lot of, they get funding from the people who make raisins. I forget the name of, I think Sunkist or something like that. Supports them. I'll put a list up here in the video while I'm talking so you can see what I'm talking about. But they get a lot of sponsorships from a lot of food companies. So if we're talking about, does the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics have any vested interest in propping up certain foods over others? Of course they do. Of course, they're never going to say that, a steak grown by a farmer who uses regenerative agriculture techniques and essentially is his own company making his own money. Of course, they're not going to favor that over, like some like whole wheat made by some, food company, like bread or something, or pasta from some food company, because they're probably getting money from that company. Right? And when you start diving into their studies, they use a lot of epidemiological evidence. They use food surveys to say that things like cholesterol are bad and cholesterol causes heart disease. So anytime I see a registered dietitian, okay, and nothing against I believe that most dietitians out there, are doing the right thing. Their heart's in the right place. They really believe that, this kind of diet that we've kind of grown up thinking, like, whole wheat grains and fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds are better than meat products, are better than animal foods. I really believe they believe that stuff. Okay. So, and a lot of dietitians will go above and beyond and stay up to date with the current research, and will veer off from that kind of more mainstream, dietitian education. There's people who I see going through, functional medicine courses and functional nutrition courses, who are registered dietitians, so they are expanding their education. They're learning about things like genomics, and they're getting up to date on the benefits of things like a ketogenic diet, which I can't imagine, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics would have any favorable opinion for. Not to say that I'm personally a fan of the ketogenic diet, but it just shows that, the evolution of your nutrition education. That being said, you can see that come through in this article right here, right? So let's go through it. According to a recent survey, 80% of respondents say they've seen conflicting information about foods to eat and those to avoid. It's no wonder people are so confused about food. The same survey found that people often put their trust in familiar but less credible sources. For example, friends, family, and food and fitness bloggers. Yet, according to a small study by the University of Glasgow researchers, the majority of nutrition and weight loss info shared by top influencers, up to 90% of it is opinion-based that's presented as science-based. Here are some foods that are commonly misrepresented by the actual facts. So, I think she's right. I think there's a lot of shenanigans online. I do my best to not be part of that shenanigans. I do my best to cite every single thing, every single claim that I make. I try to put a citation to. Sometimes I'll just chat, I'll just talk, and, I might say something, and, you could probably refute that with a study. But if there's one thing I've realized diving into things like PubMed studies and ResearchGate and all these different journals is that there is conflicting evidence for everything. And you have to be a real knowledgeable person about statistical methods, p-values, statistical significance, things like this, to really understand what is actually happening. And a lot of times with these food studies, the biggest thing you have to understand is you cannot control for everything. You cannot control for lifestyle. You cannot control for, we can sit there and see, hey, are things like, potatoes healthy, right? So you take a cohort of people who eat potatoes, and you take a cohort of people who don't eat potatoes, and then you put them together and see, who has the healthier markers, right? But as we all know, people aren't just sitting around doing nothing with their day but eating potatoes. And even if they were, we know that, certain genetics play the role of metabolism in the body. So, typically people of, Eastern European descent have completely different metabolisms of people from Asian descent, of African American descent, of even Western European, of even like Indian, or Native American or South American. So it really gets, and then you also have your family history, right? If you have a parent who had diabetes, you are, I don't know what the actual number is, 20%, 50%, 70% higher risk of actually getting diabetes yourself. So for one person, potatoes might cause diabetes. For another person, potatoes might not have any effect at all, right? There's people, this guy, Ray Cronice, who has been a proponent of the potato-only diet. As a nutritionist, I would never put somebody on a potato-only diet. Penn Jillette did a potato-only diet and lost a ton of weight, but I still would not put people on a potato-only diet. Same thing with, with ribeye steaks. There's people who eat nothing but ribeye steaks every single day, and they're doing great. But there's people who eat a ribeye steak and they completely fall to crap. So in this article, she's talking about potatoes. I got no problem with potatoes, right? But then she goes to breakfast cereal. Let's see what she says here. Breakfast cereal often finds itself in the crossfire between added sugar and refined grains, but it deserves another look. It's true that many breakfast cereals are loaded with one or both of these things, but it's easy to find varieties made with little, if any, added sugar and that provide whole grains as the predominant or only grains. In addition to being a convenient option, a key consideration for most weekday mornings, cereal is often fortified with nutrients like iron and B vitamins that our diets completely lack. That means choosing choosing cereal for breakfast can help you meet your daily nutrient targets. Add cereal to milk or yogurt, and the nutrient content goes up considerably. Okay, what in the freaking flippity flick was that? Okay, first of all, anybody who has ever eaten cereal, which is, I would guess, most Americans, you do not add cereal to milk, okay? You add milk to cereal. You don't drink milk with a small serving of cereal. You eat cereal with some milk added. So I don't know how a quote-unquote registered dietitian, I shouldn't say quote-unquote, an actual registered dietitian confuses the language on that. I don't know how you completely not botch that. Do you not actually work with real people? Do you not live in the world? In what scenario do you add cereal to, oh, hey, I got a glass of milk, I'm going to throw a couple crumbs of cereal in there just for some garnish? What are you, out of your mind? Okay? And then, to make it even worse, add cereal to your yogurt? Is there anything more disgusting? You want to have cereal with yogurt? First of all, yogurt is disgusting, okay? But then you throw some cereal on that? Look, yogurt might have a redeeming quality in the fact that you might get some probiotic benefit, okay? But if you're adding cereal on top of that, look, you can gloss over the fact that refined grains might not be good for you. Let's try to keep refined grains as much as possible out of your body. At least just stick to the yogurt by itself. And then she also has this part where she's talking about, a key consideration for most mornings, cereal is often fortified with nutrients like iron and B vitamins that our diets commonly lack. So as a registered dietitian, how do you not understand the difference in bioavailability between, fortified B vitamins and B vitamins and iron from actual food, right? As far as we know, the B vitamins they add and the iron they add to fortify grains is not that bioavailable, I don't have the studies in front of me here, but, the B vitamins you get from cereal are far less effective from even just a B vitamin supplement. So this whole kind of hiding behind this veil of, healthy things like iron and B vitamins, it's such BS. It's such BS. How do you as a dietitian even stand behind that, right? Not to mention, okay, it's true that many breakfast cereals are loaded with refined grains and sugar, but, that's no big deal. It's like added sugar. It's not like the thing that, has been shown in vitro to physically, literally grow cancer cells. Sugar, it's not behind things like, mental health problems and diabetes and all of these problems with glycemic control. It's just like a little added refined sugar and, never mind all those other chemicals they put in cereal to actually, refine the grains themselves, to actually package the grain so that they can last through a fucking nuclear holocaust, versus like a grain should only last like a couple weeks or so. Never mind that stuff. Let's just throw some iron shavings and some B vitamin jizz in there, and then everybody will be healthy. It's crazy to think cereal. It's crazy, and she don't even talk about like the cereals that are like good or bad. Okay, so Cocoa Puffs on the same level as Wheaties. Okay, gotcha. Cool. What else? An ideal breakfast cereal is 100% whole grain and provides at least 3 grams of fiber, more is better, with fewer than 6 grams of added sugar. Less than that or no added sugar is best. But you don't. Every cereal has added sugar. That's the only thing that makes cereal palatable. This was the thing that when Kellogg invented Kellogg's, that he had such a problem with, was that cereal was not palatable whatsoever. They had to add sugar because you cannot eat cereal without sugar. It's literally impossible to eat. It's just it's like you'll gag. It's like if you eat sugar without cereal, it's like you're gonna throw up in your mouth, right? So not only are you not getting nutrition from cereal, you're getting anti-nutrition from losing food in your body, and then you're fucking with your esophagus, and you're getting, burning from stomach acid coming up. It's just, what are you talking about, dude? What in the world? To become a smarter cereal shopper, scan the serving size along with the ingredient list and these attributes. You may be surprised to see serving sizes as small as a quarter of a cup and no larger than 1 1/4 cup. If you're like most people I know, this amount of food might not make a dent in your hunger. So rather than double or triple up on the serving size, round out your cereal in a more nutritious way. Boost the protein content by serving it over Greek yogurt instead of with milk, or have a little Greek yogurt on the side. Toss in some fiber-rich fruit like berries, chopped apple or pear, or some juicy pomegranate seeds, and don't forget to add in healthful fat like chopped peanuts, pecans, walnuts, or almonds, or pumpkin, chia, or ground flaxseed. Another added bonus, if you add some zucchini, carrots, or another veggie of your to your breakfast cereal, hey, veggies are often added to overnight. Oh, what the freak is she talking about? Add vegetables to your cereal? So she's trying to convince you to eat cereal with little sugar in it. Okay, fine. I get that, right? But then she's like, well, you know what would make it healthier? Add some vegetables to your... What? No, don't do that. Don't add vegetables, because then you're not going to eat either. You're not going to... There could be... Vegetables are like, you have to work your way into them, okay? And they're not going to be any easier with cereal. If anything, they're going to be more confusing, right? You're getting like these nutrients with things like phytates in them that bind to the actual minerals and the actual vitamins in the vegetables themselves. So sure, you can eat vegetables and fucking cornflakes, but all you're doing is completely negating the benefits of the vegetables themselves, right? And grated zucchini, I could not think of any worse way to eat a bowl of Cheerios than with fucking grated carrots. There's the only way I could stomach a carrot is like with ranch dressing, okay? So I guess we've realized then I have an admission to make. I don't eat carrots because I don't eat ranch dressing. This crazy lady is also talking about, hey, you want to make it better, throw some Greek yogurt on it. Okay, fine. Greek yogurt has some redeeming qualities. All right, but by God, do not add more fruit. Don't add more sugar to your cereal, okay? Especially if you're eating this thing first thing in the morning. Because first thing in the morning, this is when your cortisol is the highest, right? This is the last time you want to be eating sugar. Because when you eat sugar, now this insulin spike you're going to get is going to lead you to a complete blood sugar dip. And within probably 30 minutes of eating, you've probably experienced this. If you eat any cereal, the 30 minutes after you eat cereal, you're starving again. Okay? Boost your protein content. Add whey protein, although whey protein has also been shown to spike insulin. So you're not going to win. You're just not going to win. Add collagen. I don't know. I can't imagine collagen and cereal being a good mix. There's just nothing redeeming about this. Okay. So we got cereal covered there. Okay. But I do like what she says here, okay? She talks a little bit more about cereal, but then she goes here and she says, okay, or just call it what it is. It's dessert. There's room in your life for a little sugar, up to 6 teaspoons a day for women and 9 for men. Oh my God. See, that's registered dietitian talk. There's room for a little sugar. No, there's no room for sugar. There's no room in the human diet for sugar. This is why people are so obese, because we're just making it okay to just say, hey, you've got room for 9 teaspoons of sugar. I don't know how many grams that is. I know I think the RDA is or the RDA limit or whatever you call it is 50 grams of sugar. That is absurd. That is so absurd for people who are trying to lose weight, for people who are trying to be healthy, for people who are trying to overcome mental health issues, to say you have an allowable amount of refined sugar. You want to get over all that shit? You get rid of added sugar. You do everything you can to get sugar out of your life. I'm not saying carbohydrates. I'm not saying, vegetables or even potatoes and tubers. I'm not even saying fruit. I'm saying this idea of these little parts of added sugar that show up in things like ketchup, sauces, in packaged food items, in, hey, I want to have a cookie. I can have a couple cookies, right? That's not a big deal. No, you shouldn't be having a couple cookies if you're trying to lose weight. You should be doing everything you can to not eat a couple cookies throughout the day if you're trying to lose weight. What are you talking about? There's room for added sugar. This is registered dietitian talk right here. No nutritional therapy practitioner, my ilk of people, would ever say, hey, you've got room for added sugar. Be like, what is wrong with you? Get rid of added sugar. Get rid of it. Do everything you can. As such, it's a lot healthier than many other super sugary things you could be eating every day. You can even make it more nutritious treat by adding nuts or seeds. Okay, so we see there. Okay, the next thing we're talking about is wheat. How does she feel about wheat? Now, I will tell you this. You see this all over the health world, okay? And it's anecdotal, right? But, look, if you're a plant-based person and all you do is watch plant-based YouTube, you're going to sit there and be like, anecdotal? That doesn't prove anything. That's not science. Well, tell that to people who are giving the anecdotes, okay? And one of the biggest anecdotes I hear is that when you give up grains, when you give up specifically wheat, people just magically lose weight. People just magically lose autoimmune problems. Women's thyroid starts to normalize. People have eczema. That starts to go away. When I started getting rid of grains in my life, I had terrible eczema on my hand. And all of a sudden, it started to go away when I started not listening to crazy-ass people like Dr. John McDougall and Dr. Greger, who would tell me, hey, there's nothing wrong with wheat. There's nothing wrong with starch. Just eat as much as you can. That's a little crazy town, if you ask me. But let's take a look and see what Miss Cassidy has to say about it. Wheat. There are plenty of people who can't tolerate gluten or the high FODMAP fructans, poorly absorbed carbohydrates that can trigger gas, bloating, and other GI distress in whole wheat. But there are plenty of people who can, and there's evidence that for those who are able to handle it, whole wheat can be beneficial. One large study looked at the impact of swapping white rice for whole grain bread on type 2 diabetes risk. In truth, neither of these two foods was associated with an increase in type 2 diabetes, but replacing a serving of white rice for the whole grain bread seemed to lower the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 18% over the 11-year study period. Another study came to a similar conclusion that consuming whole wheat products was linked to a reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Whole wheat foods have also been shown to improve markers of gut health when compared to refined grains, and including whole wheat foods may even prevent an early death from, say, cancer or heart disease. I've heard claims from people who give up wheat and they tell me they've lost weight or experienced another benefit like better energy levels. And while I'm not discounting their experience, they may be another factor at play. Giving up wheat means passing on the bread basket at restaurants and the cupcakes at school events. It also means eliminating most sandwiches, pizza, pasta, and other foods that are often oversized or overeaten. If you're reducing these foods and replacing them with whole foods like either gluten-free whole grains like quinoa or grain-free whole foods like veggies, nuts, beans, or poultry, it's not surprising that you'd lose weight or feel better. However, that's probably because of the less healthy foods you're no longer eating and the healthier ones you're eating instead versus the mere fact that you aren't eating wheat. If whole wheat doesn't trouble you and you enjoy whole wheat bread, cereals, crackers, and pasta, crackers, what are you out of your mind? And even the occasional white versions, science and professional experience tells me that you can still enjoy these foods. The fine print, a serving size of these foods is often smaller than you think, and it's common to overeat whole wheat foods at the expense of veggies. Try reversing the ratio of veggies to grains, which is more on par with what most people need. That means if you're having a sandwich, have it on a whole wheat English muffin or two, not giant slices of whole wheat bread, and eat it with a generous side of veggies like carrot, celery, and red pepper sticks. She's talking about these studies, right? One study looked at the impact of swapping white rice with whole grain bread on type 2 diabetes risk. Look, how reliable is this study, right? Because you can look right here and see the method they use. What is the method they use? We included 45,000 male and female participants and validated the usual diet at baseline was evaluated by a validated 165 item semi-quantitative food frequency questionnaire. So, I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to get an accurate view of what is happening in people with a food questionnaire. And it's the same thing with this other study. Another study came to a similar conclusion, that consuming whole wheat products was linked to a reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Okay, so, what do we got here, right? What are the methods of this study? Higher whole grain intake is associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes among middle-aged men and women, the Danish diet, cancer and cohort. Okay, well, what did we do here? We got a detailed information from the intake of whole grain products was available from a food frequency questionnaire. Okay, so look, not to discount, maybe this study does tell us something, right? But the fact is that the methods of getting this information are so half-baked. They're so half-baked and unreliable that you cannot make an educated assumption about what's going on here, right? Sure, you get these studies that come out that will talk about, hey, whole grain intake and risk of type 2 diabetes. We look at like a meta-analysis, right? Looking at the evidence. What does the evidence say? Are whole grains good for you? Are whole grains better for you? Well, let's take a look here at another example. This one just came out last year, okay? Whole grain intake and the risk of type 2 diabetes, right? And, this study is basically saying, yeah, you can eat whole grain, you can eat wheat, you can eat all these things, and it helps with type 2 diabetes. And then you come down here and everything is good, everything seems great, it's a great meta-analysis, but then what do you get? Some of the trials on the whole grain performed by the authors that were reviewed by this paper have been funded by Barilla. Who is Barilla? They make pasta. So, of course, they're going to say that whole grain and whole wheat doesn't contribute to type 2 diabetes. It's unbelievable, okay? And then you can look here and see, well, where does whole grains and whole wheat measure up on the glycemic index? This was done by the, Harvard Medical School, right? Well, you look down here at the highest glycemic index, white bread, number 1, whole wheat, wholemeal bread, not too far behind, right there, number 2, okay? And specialty grain bread, 53. I mean, these are very high, okay? Much higher than corn. Even white rice, look at that, okay? 73, and brown rice, 68. So, yeah, you cannot tell me that there's no connection here between whole wheat and grains and type 2 diabetes when we know the studies they're using to get this information are so flawed, so unreliable. And then even Harvard, who should be on the level of, the USDA and the FDA and the food pyramid and registered dietitians, they come out with this graph talking about the glycemic index. You can see that bread and grains and rice are going to spike your insulin. And they're going to do it fast, and they're going to do it furious. So, I just don't get on board with this, this whole type 2 diabetes thing that you're saying that wheat does. Now, she does make some interesting points, that there, like I was saying before, that, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that when people give up grains and breads, they're also giving up things like pasta and pizza and sandwiches. And yes, who eats a slice of pizza? Typically, most people eat 5 slices of pizza, right? Who eats a half a sandwich? Most people eat a whole sandwich. It's because you eat the bread and the sandwich and you're still hungry because your insulin is going crazy, right? And if you give up bread, you're giving up that food. And then in those foods, you're also getting dairy, you're also getting, processed meats, you're also getting, dressings, you're getting all kinds of unhealthy stuff, in pizza, you're getting oils. So if you give up wheat, you're giving up a lot of, subsequential downstream bad stuff as well. But it doesn't mean that wheat doesn't play a role in all that stuff. In fact, it means that wheat is probably playing the biggest role. Why would you discount people's experience from that they actually have, to make a point that is, it's true, but at the same time, you're not being completely honest. Again, this is registered dietitian speak right here. So one more thing I want to show you here in the article. Okay, now she goes through bananas, and there's a lot of controversy with bananas. There's a lot of people in the paleo world and in the keto world who will not touch bananas. I personally love bananas, and as you can see, I'm in great shape. Okay, look at that jawline. Look at that, got a shave, but got a good jawline still. But, she talks about bananas are great. I can get on board with that. I think bananas are good. Great fiber, especially like green bananas, amazing source of resistant starch. But then she rolls down here and she starts talking about soy. Okay. Now, soy is probably like the apex fucking issue between like the plant-based community and, the paleo keto community, where we'll never find agreements between anything, right? Because the plant-based community, they know their whole world is built on soy. Okay. Soy is a major influence in those worlds, right? You have the more stereotypical version, which is like, soy messes with your hormones, soy gives you man boobs, soy's not good for breast cancer. And, as you look around at these different studies, you see a lot of conflicting research. So let me read through what she says, and I'm going to give you my take on it here, okay? Soy. A major trend in marketing and manufacturing is the free from claim, which highlights when a food is free from certain ingredients like dairy or soy, though originally driven by the demand for products that were free from highly allergenic ingredients, which include soy. According to the market research firm Euromonitor, it's now driven by health-conscious consumers who think these are more nutritious options. As a result of this belief, soy foods are taking a hit, with soy milk in particular taking steep declines in sales. But let's be clear on food marketing. Claims like soy-free aren't necessarily the best indicator of health, and as with other whole foods, there's a huge difference between whole or minimally processed forms of soy, which include edamame, tofu, and soy milk, compared to heavily processed forms such as the soy protein concentrate used in the Impossible Burger. The former whole and minimally processed forms of soy are plant-based proteins that provide all the essential amino acids found in animal-based proteins, which is unique for a plant source, along with fiber and some key minerals like potassium and magnesium. Whole and minimally processed forms of soy also provide environmental benefits if you're swapping them for protein, so they're good for you and future generations. Okay, so she really, what I like about her is that she is kind of on the level a little bit. She's not totally out, in outer space. She can kind of differentiate the differences between processed soy and, and kind of more natural forms of soy. But the fact that she's still kind of advocating for soy, she goes on here, right? As for the highly processed forms of soy foods like those found in fake meat products, soy-based protein shakes, and some high-protein bars remains questioned. That means we just can't say what the long-term impacts might be, neutral or otherwise. This doesn't mean you need to avoid these foods altogether, but I'd suggest modest intake. Seeing highly processed soy in the ingredients list is usually a sign of other highly processed or not so healthy ingredients like excessive salt or artificial sweeteners. So there's more than one reason to eat these foods sparingly. Okay. While most people can safely include and benefit from whole and minimally processed forms of soy in their diet, soy is a top allergen, and many soy foods contain those undigestible carbs, those FODMAPs again, that can trigger GI distress. So while soy foods can be really healthy, some people still need to avoid them. So she's kind of on the level with soy. Her big complaint is like the soy protein found in, the Impossible Burger, for instance, right? She's kind of differentiating between those two facts. But the fact that she's still giving soy a little bit of a pass, makes me wonder, right? We've seen soy have tremendous complications with people. A lot of people have serious soy allergies. Some people have serious reactions to things like soy. Soy can be terrible for women's thyroids, right? If you're a woman and you got thyroid issues, we know that soy can affect the function of your thyroid. And then you start getting a lot of these reviews that give soy a pass. So this study right here is kind of talking about the same thing that that the author's talking about, that Samantha Cassidy is talking about, where, basically what you see is the differentiation between soy, like artificial soy products that come with all of these other processed ingredients, and natural soy, right? So the natural soy is the thing, the edamame, the tofu, things like that, even though tofu is totally processed. where you don't see that many complications, right? Because it comes in nature. It comes with all of these other compounds. It's the full vegetable, basically, the full plant, right? Versus like the processed soy, okay? So yeah, we can see the difference in that. But then you get studies like this one here that was put in the Journal of the American Heart Association, okay, cumulative meta-analysis of the soy effect over time. And what you will see here is that, holy cow, sources of funding. Dr. Jenkins, who is the lead author, was funded by the Canada Research Chairs Program. That's good. But, you know, he's also received grants from, I don't know, seems like every single food company in North America, right? You got, who do you got on there? You got Quaker Oats, you got Procter & Gamble, you got Coca-Cola. So some super shady stuff. And this is all over soy research right here, okay? So you always have to differentiate. Whenever you see like a study that comes out talking about soy, you have to understand who is actually funding that, right? And sometimes that can be hard to find. But in doing research for this, you know, one great note that I found was from Chris Kresser, who was discussing really kind of like the differences of soy. Why is soy so confusing, right? Why do people like in Asian cultures, like Chinese and Japanese, why are they so good with soy? And then why is it we have such bad reactions, you know? And you could do this, you know, kind of racial thing, this genetics thing, but a lot of it comes down to the fact that in Asian cultures, Japanese and Chinese, their use of soy, they're using soy more as a condiment, right? Soy sauce, perfect example, okay? You're not creating entire meals out of soy sauce or even edamame, right? Or even tofu. It's like a little side thing, okay? Versus here in America, we're using soy as total, complete animal product replacement. So we're not just drinking like milk with some soy. We're drinking soy milk. You know, we're not just eating like a little bit of tofu. We're eating tofu burgers and tofu steaks and tofu turkeys, okay? We're eating soy as a grain built into all of these other frankenfoods. And yeah, we're getting way more soy than even bodies that were designed to handle soy can even handle in the first place. So is soy as simple as saying, is it as simple as saying something like soy gives you man boobs? Not really. But at the same time, you have to understand like the way the information comes in is totally skewed in these two fields. So my overall issue with this article being written by, you know, someone from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, you can see the influence that has in her analysis of these foods. And quite frankly, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics gets such a carte blanche pass on their knowledge of nutrition. But as you can see here, like in this article, their knowledge of nutrition is like from the 80s, you know? They're also, you know, they have such like a plant-based bias, such like a heart health bias that has been disproven over and over and over again. That, again, my whole point is anytime you see a registered dietitian and that's their only education, you always have to question it. Because the information they're getting comes from an organization that has been in partnerships for many years with a lot of these big food companies, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Kraft, General Mills, Abbott, Sunkist, who are the ones who put their food in the middle of the grocery store where, again, all the cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and autoimmune disease is, that's essentially wrecking our entire healthcare system. So that's my thought on that issue, but I'd love to know what you think. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know what your thoughts are. Also, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Give the video a big fat thumbs up if you liked it, and be sure to share it with all the people you love and care about. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.